So in a previous video, we made this little logo animation, but we approached this kind of really fast and easy. We didn't go into a lot of detail about some of the more advanced features in Cinema 4D. And so in this video, I wanted to go and talk about some other things that, while they might not be specifically very advanced, they do expand the capabilities of Cinema 4D and maybe get you, I think that it's a good way to get you to start thinking about more advanced ideas. The first thing I want to do is talk about lighting here, because we do have, if we go to a render preview and we hit Command R, you can see there is this default lighting that's applied, and I don't have any lights in the scene. And that just kind of shows up. Now, I could put a light in, so here's where all the lights are, and let's put in something like an area light. An area light is going to be kind of shaped like this, this square, and we can use this to light the scene. If we go to render this now, what do we see? Well, it looks similar, except I can tell that there's a little bit of shadow that's coming off of here. We need to go to the render settings and dig a little bit deeper. So Command B, or we'll go into options here, and what you can see is that this setting default light was checked by default. So if I turn that off, and from here, this light is a little bit more even. We could move this around. But yeah, one thing I like to do is make sure that this is unchecked, and just really just start to light it. So there's a few things we can do. There's different types of lights. Target light lets you actually set a target on it, and as it moves, it'll move with it. Spotlight is a really strong light. I think we can start with these area lights, and maybe what I'll do is the other thing too is a lot of times in a scene you don't just have one light, you might have a few different lights, and I'm going to try to look at this from up above. This is the top view. If you are used to being on a photo set or something, maybe you're used to seeing different lighting setups. So maybe I'll do something like where I have these two sets of lights that are kind of working together to help get rid of some shadows, light the scene, but also get rid of some of those shadows. There might be an overhead light or something, or in this case, maybe there's a backlight. Oh, I brought that in as a regular light. Oh, maybe we could just do it so you could see, they do have different qualities. Let me just pull this in. So you can see where the light is catching along the edges. Okay, so we're at least starting to light this scene up. Within these lights, there's also, you could keyframe them, so you could have them move up and down. You could have them change the color, and you can use the strength. So you could have a green light, give it a greenish tint if you want to, and then you could keyframe that to another color. So kind of just riff in here. Maybe we'll start with that. It starts greenish and then it goes back to a white color. With these lights, you might think about them having maybe not 100% intensity, maybe it's 80%, or maybe one light is more intense than the other, maybe that one. And so you can really dial these lights in to get the look that you want. So now there should be a little brighter edge on this side. It's like we're almost like painting with the light. All right. I think I did not set a keyframe with that green light. I didn't set it back to, I turned it to white, but I didn't hit this button to turn that on. So now you should see that transition. You know, I can move these around if I want that transition to happen later. Maybe it's up here. Okay, so just really, this video again is meant to just show you some quick things. So lighting can go in there. The next thing we might want to do is have a camera. So again, there's a camera and a target camera. I guess we could do both. This is a camera. When you can have multiple cameras in a scene, so maybe I'll bring in a target camera over here, and the target camera you can see has this connection, or it's up here. It has this target expression, and so basically whenever I move this target, this is a null object, the camera will move around with it. So that could be helpful if you wanted to control it. You can actually switch the target here. So for example, if I wanted to follow this object, which I've animated, I could take this and click and drag it into here. And now you should see that when I play it, that camera is moving with it. Now, I'm not seeing the change here because I'm on this default camera. The way you activate a camera is by clicking on this little square, and now you can see that that is on. It's telling you it's on camera 1. You can change the cameras here, or you can switch to another camera by doing this, right? So that's helpful. This is what the camera sees. Now we have this like camera move with it. You can tell because the background's moving. All right, so maybe we won't use this camera, but I just wanted to show you that you could have that there. Inside camera right here, there's all these options, so you can set the focal length, the field of view, the focus distance, which we should, at some point we should think about this. The distance for this is actually going to be, you know, what's in focus. Now, right now, everything would probably be in focus because we haven't set the render settings to have depth of field, but we could turn that on. But okay, we're getting this kind of set up. Yeah, the focal length, you know, there's different things here. You could do a wide angle. You can see how that changes it, or you could do a telephoto lens, and that just, you know, you can see what it does. It like zooms into it. Maybe we'll just use a normal lens, and that seems fine to me. So a lot of things you can change here. There's some other things. I guess what we can do is try adding some depth of field in here and maybe make a render that's a little bit more sophisticated. So if I really wanted to see depth of field, I would need some other objects in here to kind of give me that sense of depth and blurring. So I'm going to bring in maybe some cylinders, so maybe some dots, and I'll change the orientation so they're kind of facing this way. Maybe these are too long, too tall. Also, if you look at the rotation segments, you can see it's a little blocky, so I want it to be a little bit smoother, so I might change it to maybe 52 or 48 or something. I think around there it starts to look okay. I'm going to put a little bit of a fillet on it just to, again, smooth the edge out. And maybe I'll drag a material on here, and let's get up close. I want this to be at a different depth than the other elements, but I still want it to be visible by the camera. So maybe it goes here, and then I'm gonna copy and paste or control, click and drag, and just get some other elements, and I'm gonna put them really far back so that we'll start to see some depth of field, some blurring in there, and I'm gonna move these around a little bit. Okay, so maybe I'll put a new color on that. I'll make another one. Move that here maybe, and maybe I'll scale it up so it has, it just feels different. Be something like that. I kind of want to change the color too. Can I change that as well? So here's my scene, and if I just do a normal preview of this, you should see that it is actually blurring a little bit. Okay, so if I go in here, I'm seeing a little bit of blurring, but to really get the depth of field, what I want to do is go into my render settings, change from standard to physical, want to click depth of field. Right now the sampling quality is low, and maybe you want to start with that, or maybe I'll go to high, so it'll be a little bit nicer of a blur. Now I want to play with, well, let's start with f-stop 8, and then maybe we'll change it and we'll see. So f-stop 8, the larger that number is, the less depth of field we're going to see, and you can already see it's taking a longer time to render this. Versus if the number is smaller, like 1.8, you're going to have more depth of field, more, or the effect will be stronger. You'll see more blurring. So already right now, I would say I don't see a lot here. There's a little bit over there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to an extreme. I might go to something like 0.5, which is actually, I'm not really sure if that's really possible in the real world, but that should give us this really pronounced effect of the blurring. So again, whatever the focal distance is, that stuff should be in focus, and then the stuff outside of it, and I think you're really starting to see the difference now. It's getting more blurry where those green circles are, and I expect that yellow circle will be even blurrier because that's further back. The further back things are, or further away from the focal distance, the more blurry they're going to be. Okay, so as this is kind of coming into focus, maybe I'll go ahead and just start rendering this out, so I have another version of this. And just to review, we turned the default lighting off. We added some lights. We added a camera with a camera target. We set the target to this extrude object, which we'd already animated, and then we turned on the physical renderer, added depth of field. We played with the settings to make it really blurry, and now we're going to go export this. So maybe I'll set this up the same way. Except this time, maybe I'll make a folder. Now, maybe this time I'll make a folder, image sequence. So I'll call this V2, and call this V2. So instead of an MOV, I'll do a PNG. I do want to have that alpha channel in there so I have some transparency, and I should just be able to do this. Now again, this is going to take a much longer time to render, so I'm going to have to take a little break, but after this finished rendering, we'll bring it into After Effects and just take a look at it. All right, so after some time, I've been able to render this video out. I rendered these out as frames, and this is the animation. I actually went in and tweaked this a little bit because I was having issues. It was taking a really long time, so I turned down the blur, or the sampling quality, I think, to medium. I actually exported this out at a slightly lower resolution, and I think it's just a good idea. Like I went in and had rendered this, but you might want to render this out in stages, or maybe really refine the animation before you start adding all the effects, like the blurs and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. Just because you invest a lot of time in rendering it, and if it's not right, if the timing's not right, then you got to re-render it, and that could take a long time. So I think it's a good idea to kind of work iteratively and you know, maybe make a lower quality version, or one that is a little bit more simple, and then go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna try to open this up in After Effects. I'm gonna go to my projects, and I am going to open up that, now that folder came in as a PNG sequence, and I wanna show you, like, this is great because I can grab all these and I can create a PNG sequence like this, force the alphabetical order, or I think it's going to do that by default. So it should start from 0, 0, 0, 0 and go numerically. So that created this sequence here. This is a PNG sequence, so it has that transparency built into it. And if I brought that in, you'll see now I have this I can export as a video, and I'll be good to go. You know, from here I might do something like, again, I feel like I kind of goofed a little bit. I didn't compose this very well, but maybe I can move this down, keyframe this a little bit, so from the top maybe there's actually a moment where it moves down a little bit and centers, and that works okay because I didn't crop this edge out, so I guess that was helpful. You know, so I'm compositing here. That's that's a little rough. Maybe I want to add some easing there. Or maybe this needs to happen a little bit sooner. Oops. I think it stops moving, and maybe it should start a little bit sooner. Or maybe it's a speed thing. We can go in and play with the speed. So maybe that's a little bit nicer. And anyways, yeah, the main idea is we've got this out. We could export this from here if we want to put, since the PNG with a transparent background, we could go and, you know, make our own background color. We could put that behind here. You know, we could keyframe that, so it's kind of like a greenish color. You know, change that around if we wanted to. And you know, we'd always go in and add curves or color correction to this, add lighting and other things within After Effects. So that is just a discussion about how to add a little bit more to your render. The physical render is great. It adds more quality, but again, there's a trade-off between the quality and the speed. So think about that as well. Maybe you can get away with the standard render, especially if you have a slower machine. But hopefully this, again, inspires you or gives you some ideas on where to go next. There's still so much to learn, but this is just a little peek into what you can do.